Welcome back to the deep dive.
Glad to be here.
Today, we are opening a file that honestly, it feels a little bit like we are handling a live wire
Oh, absolutely. It really does.
because you have these topics that people think are boring on the surface,
Sure.
right? Things like personal finance, accounting, cash flow.
Right. The stuff that puts people to sleep.
Exactly. But then you peel back just one layer and suddenly you are in the middle of a philosophical war.
It really is a war of ideas.
And that is exactly where we are today. We are looking at a book that has been loved, hated, debunked, worshipped, and practically memorized by millions of people since the late 90s. We are talking about Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
The book that launched 1,000 real estate careers,
Or maybe a million at this point.
probably a million. And you were right about the war aspect of it, because this is not just a book about how to balance a checkbook.
Right.
It is actually a critique of the entire way we are raised to think about value and labor
Sure.
and security. It challenges the American dream narrative so aggressively that it actually makes some people very angry.
It does. I mean, I remember the first time I read it, I felt this strange mix of excitement, but also defensiveness.
Defensiveness is the perfect word for it.
Because you think, hey, I worked hard for my degree. Do not tell me it is a trap.
Exactly. You feel like your life choices are being attacked.
But before we get to the controversy, and we will absolutely get to the part where the author tells you your house is a liability, which I know drives people nuts.
Oh, that is the most controversial part.
We will get there. But let's set the stage first. The hook of this entire deep dive is right there in the title, The Two Dads.
It is a brilliant narrative device.
He really is.
Because whether you believe it is 100% factually accurate or maybe more of a parable, it is almost beside the point.
Right, the contrast is what actually matters.
Exactly. The whole philosophy is built on this duality. On one side, you have poor dad.
And this is the author's biological father.
Yes. And we should be very clear here. When the book says poor, it does not mean destitute or unemployed.
Right, that is the kicker. Poor Dad was actually incredibly successful on paper.
Extremely successful. I mean, he held a PhD.
Right.
He went to Stanford,
Yeah.
went to the University of Chicago, Northwestern,
Elite institutions.
the best of the best. And he was the superintendent of education for the state of Hawaii.
Wow.
So he was a highly respected government official. He had a steady paycheck, fantastic benefits, total job security,
The model citizen.
completely. He did everything the system told him to do.
And yet.
And yet he struggled financially his entire life.
Which is wild to think about.
It is. He was constantly stressed about bills. He lived paycheck to paycheck,
Despite the high income.
despite all of it.
Hmm.
And when he died, the only thing he really left behind were some unpaid debts and a lot of paper credentials.
Which is a terrifying thought for a lot of us who followed that exact same script. Go to school, get a good job.
Because it shows that the script does not guarantee financial peace.
Exactly. So then, in the other corner, you have Rich Dad.
Right. Rich Dad was the father of the author's best friend, Mike.
Okay.
And this man, he never finished the 8th grade.
No PhD there.
No degrees at all. No pedigree. No government title.
But his trajectory was entirely different.
Completely. He became one of the wealthiest men in Hawaii. He built an empire of businesses, real estate, and investments.
And his legacy.
When he died, he left tens of millions of dollars to his family and to charities.
So the mission for us today, and for you listening, is not just to look at the accounting.
Right. We are not here to discuss tax brackets.
No. We are here to figure out the operating system.
Mhm.
We need to understand why the guy with all the right answers ended up poor, and the guy with the 8th grade education ended up rich.
Because if we can crack that code, we might be able to step off the treadmill ourselves.
Exactly. It is an investigation into two fundamentally different mindsets.
One mindset keeps you working hard for money your entire life.
And the other.
The other teaches you how to make money work for you.
And I think it is important to point out that the difference is not about intelligence.
Not at all. Poor Dad was arguably much smarter in a traditional IQ sense.
Right, the academic sense.
The difference is entirely about financial literacy and emotional control.
And we are going to cover some wild stories from the source material to get there.
We really are.
We have got counterfeit nickels, we have got a comic book library run by 9-year-olds, and we are going to completely dismantle the idea of job security.
It is going to be a ride.
But let's start with the head game. Segment 1 in our deep dive today is all about mindset over math.
Mindset over math is a perfect way to put it.
So the author, Robert, talks about growing up with these two conflicting voices in his head.
Imagine being 9 years old, right? And your dad, the one you live with, the one you love and respect, says something like, the love of money is the root of all evil.
Which is a classic line. We have all heard that.
We have. And it frames money as this dirty, corrupting force.
Like, if you want money, you must inherently be a bad person.
Precisely.
Yeah.
It is a moral judgment. But then Robert goes over to his friend's house, and Rich Dad says, no, no, the lack of money is the root of all evil.
That is such a flip.
It completely reframes the narrative.
Yeah.
It reframes poverty as the actual cause of suffering, crime, and desperation.
Wow. And you see this clash everywhere in the book.
Everywhere. Poor Dad would say, play it safe, do not take risks.
And Rich Dad.
Rich Dad would say, learn to manage risk.
That is a huge difference, avoiding risk versus managing it.
Exactly. Poor Dad would say, I am not interested in money.
Which is usually a defense mechanism, right?
Almost always. But Rich Dad would say, money is power.
There is one specific linguistic habit that really stood out to me in the research. It is the difference between a statement and a question.
Ah, yes, the brain exercise.
Right. So poor Dad would look at a Ferrari or a nice house or whatever, and he would say, I can't afford it. Period. End of discussion.
And Rich Dad absolutely hated that phrase.
He banned it, didn't he?
He forbade his son and Robert from ever saying it. He believed that when you say, I can't afford it, your brain just shuts down.
It is a mental
Yeah.
full stop.
Exactly. You have let yourself off the hook.
Yeah.
You do not have to do any work because you have already accepted defeat.
It is like cognitive closure. I can't do it, so I do not have to try. Let's go watch TV.
Yes, it is mental laziness. So Rich Dad insisted on replacing the statement with a question.
How can I afford it?
How can I afford it? It sounds like a tiny semantic trick, but think about what it actually does to your brain.
Right.
Suddenly, your brain has to start working. It has to scan the environment for opportunity.
It has to solve the puzzle.
Yes. You start thinking, okay, I can't afford it with my current salary. So what problem can I solve? What can I sell? Who can I partner with?
It turns the obstacle into a challenge.
Exactly. Rich Dad viewed your brain as a muscle.
Like going to the gym.
Exactly like that. Every time you say, I can't afford it, that muscle atrophies.
It gets weaker.
But every time you ask, how can I afford it, you are doing mental push-ups.
I love that analogy.
And Rich Dad believed that the reason his friend, the highly educated poor dad, was struggling financially was not because he did not make enough money.
Because he made a lot of money.
Right. It was because his brain had stopped looking for answers. It had gone to sleep.
And there is a really poignant distinction he makes in the text about the state of being broke versus being poor.
Oh, this is a profound moment. At one point, Rich Dad actually lost a ton of money in a bad business deal.
He was wiped out.
He was technically bankrupt for a period of time.
Yeah.
But even when he had absolutely $0 to his name, he would not call himself poor.
What did he say?
He said, there is a difference between being poor and being broke. Broke is temporary. Poor is eternal.
Poor is eternal. Man, that hits hard.
It really does. Because it implies that poverty is an identity.
It is an acceptance of a situation. Like, this is just who I am.
Yes, broke is just a cash flow problem.
And you can fix a cash flow problem.
Exactly. But you cannot fix a mindset that has decided it has no power to change things.
So, you have Robert. He is 9 years old. He is looking at these two men.
And he has to make a choice.
And this is kind of the pivotal moment of his entire life. He decides to stop listening to his biological father about money.
Which is a huge betrayal, in a way.
It has to feel that way to a kid.
He is choosing the uneducated man over the PhD.
Right. But he realized that despite his dad's education, the financial advice was leading to a dead end.
So he and his friend Mike go to Rich Dad and ask to be taught.
And this leads us to the toothpaste factory story.
Yes.
Now, I have to say, this story is hilarious because it just shows how incredibly literal kids are.
It does. We have to set the scene for this. It is the 1950s.
Right. Very different era.
Very. So Robert and Mike are excluded from a beach trip by a classmate
Why?
because they are the poor kids in their school.
Even though Robert's dad is a superintendent.
They lived in a wealthy district, so comparatively, they were the poor kids.
Got it.
So they go to Robert's dad and they ask, how do we make money?
And the dad, who is probably reading the paper or distracted, just says, I do not know, boys. Use your head. Which is terrible advice, by the way. Use your head. Thanks, Dad. Very actionable.
But they took it completely to heart. They formed a business partnership right then and there.
Okay, what did they do?
They started going around the neighborhood, knocking on doors, and asking all the neighbors to save their empty toothpaste tubes for them.
Now, for you listening, especially the younger listeners, we need to clarify something about the 1950s.
Yes, toothpaste tubes were not made of plastic back
They
then.
were made of lead.
Actual lead.
We were just rubbing lead on our gums back then. Different times.
Very different health standards. So the neighbors are confused, obviously, but they play along and save the tubes.
And the boys collect this absolute mountain of lead toothpaste tubes.
Hundreds of them. Then, one Saturday morning, they set up their factory in Robert's driveway.
This is where it gets good.
They have a hibachi grill fired up with red-hot coals.
Just a casual foundry in the suburbs.
Exactly. And they are melting these lead tubes down in an old bean can over the coals.
Just inhaling toxic fumes in the driveway. OSHA would have an absolute field day with this.
Oh, it is a hazy cloud of toxic lead vapor. So they melt the lead, and then they pour the molten metal into these plaster molds they have made using milk cartons.
Wow.
Right at that moment, Robert's dad drives up with a friend. He sees smoke billowing from the driveway, runs over in a panic, and finds two 9-year-olds running a smelting operation.
I can only imagine his face.
He asks, "What in the world are you boys doing?" And Robert, just beaming with pride, looks up and says, "We are doing what you said. We are making money."
And he meant it literally.
Literally. The dad cracks open one of the plaster molds to see what is inside, and a perfectly formed lead nickel falls out.
They were counterfeiting nickels?
They were minting federal currency.
Oh my God.
They had created a supply chain, they had a manufacturing process, they had a distribution plan.
They just happened to be committing a federal crime in the process.
Ex-
I love that the dad has to sit them down and explain this. Like, boys, the word is counterfeiting, and it is highly illegal.
But the friend who was with the dad, and I think this is a really key detail in the book, the friend laughs, but he points out something important.
What does he say?
He says, they might be developing a natural talent here.
Because they actually took action.
That is the pivot. They had the drive, they had the initiative to solve a problem, they just lacked the knowledge.
They did not know the difference between creating actual value and just printing money.
Right. So after the lead nickel disaster is cleaned up, Robert's dad admits he cannot teach them about wealth.
He knows his limits.
He does. He says, if you really want to learn how to make money, go talk to Mike's dad.
So they go to see Mike's dad, and this is our first real introduction to the character of Rich Dad.
Yes.
And he is not what they expect at all.
No. He is not in a fancy suit. He is not in a glass high-rise building.
He is in a modest house.
A very modest house, but it is just buzzing with activity.
He is running his whole empire from a small office.
And when the boys arrive, he makes them wait.
Which is a power move.
It is a power move, but it is also a lesson. He is treating them like business partners, not like kids.
Right.
When they finally get into his office, he offers them a deal.
Okay.
He says, I will teach you, but I will not lecture you. I am not a school teacher. You learn by working.
And the terms he offers were terrible.
10 cents an hour.
Even in 1956, 10 cents an hour was low.
It was essentially nothing. And they had to work 3 hours every single Saturday.
Which meant missing baseball.
Missing cartoons, missing playing with their friends. And it was grueling, boring work.
What were they doing?
Dusting cans in one of his little convenience stores. Just taking a feather duster and wiping dust off canned beans for 3 hours.
Robert hates it, naturally.
Naturally. He does this for a few weeks, and he's just miserable.
He feels exploited.
He is making 30 cents a week. He cannot even buy a comic book with that. So, like any self-respecting worker, he decides to go on strike.
Good for him.
He tells Mike, I quit. I am done.
And Mike's reaction is great.
Mike just smiles and says, my dad said this would happen. He said to come see him when you were ready to quit.
It was a setup. The whole thing was a trap.
It was entirely a trap. Rich Dad knew that the moment the employee mindset kicked in, that feeling of being underpaid and undervalued, where Robert would react.
So Robert goes to confront Rich Dad.
And this scene is amazing because Robert, who is only 9, sounds exactly like a disgruntled union leader.
He is furious.
He accuses Rich Dad of being cheap. He accuses him of being greedy. He says, you are not teaching me anything. You have never once spoken to me since I started. I have just been dusting your stupid cans.
And Rich Dad says?
He leans back in his chair and says, not bad. In less than a month, you sound like most of my employees.
Ouch, that is a cold splash of water right in the face.
It really is. But then Rich Dad explains that he actually was teaching him.
By ignoring him.
By giving him a taste of life.
Yeah.
He explains that most people let life push them around. They get a job, They feel underpaid. They blame their boss. They blame the economy. They blame the government.
Should blame everything outside of themselves.
Exactly. Some get angry and fight back, like Robert just did.
Demanding a raise.
Right. But others just give up and accept the 10 cents an hour. They just accept their fate.
And this is where we get into the core mechanism of what the book calls the rat race.
Yes.
It is driven by two primary emotions, fear and greed, or, depending on the chapter, fear and desire.
This is the psychological engine of the rat race. We have to break this down because this is what keeps people stuck, even if they are making $200,000 a year.
Okay, let's unpack it.
First, there is fear. The fear of not having money.
The fear of missing a rent payment.
The fear of starving. That fear is what wakes you up in the morning.
Yeah.
It kicks you out of bed and sends you to a job you might not even like.
Okay, so fear drives you to work. You go to work, you work hard, and then at the end of the week, you get paid.
Right. And the exact moment the money hits your hand, the fear subsides for just a second.
Relief.
Relief, but immediately the second emotion takes over. Greed or desire.
Right.
Suddenly you see all the things that money can buy. A new car, a better phone, nice clothes, a vacation.
You start window shopping.
Exactly. The joy of spending completely takes over your brain.
So you spend the money.
You spend it. And then, a few days or weeks later, the money is gone.
And what returns?
The fear returns.
Because the bank account is empty again.
Yes. So you go back to work, wake up, work, pay bills, spend, wake up, work, pay bills, spend.
That is the rat race.
That is the rat race.
It is a conditioned response. It is literally like Pavlov's dog hearing the bell.
Exactly like that. The rich dad told the boys, most people do not think, they react.
They feel fear, so they go to work.
They feel desire, so they spend.
They never actually stop to ask, is there another way to do this?
Never. And here is the kicker, the part that blows people's minds. Rich dad says that getting more money does not solve this cycle.
Wait, hold on. Let me play devil's advocate here. If I have more money, I have less fear, right? If I win the lottery and have $1 million, I am not afraid of paying rent anymore.
That is what we all think. But Rich Dad argues that for people who are trapped in this cycle, more money just leads to more debt and actually more fear.
How does that work?
Because if you give a person with a rat race mindset a raise, they do not invest it. They just upgrade their lifestyle.
Ah, lifestyle creep.
Exactly. They buy a bigger house. They lease a more expensive car.
So their expenses go up to match their income.
Exactly. Now their liabilities are much higher, so they have to work even harder to maintain that new lifestyle.
And the fear.
If fear does not go away, it actually gets bigger because now they have so much more to lose. They have mortgage to worry about instead of just rent.
That is the concept of the golden handcuffs. You see this all the time in tech or law or medicine.
Yes.
People are making incredible incomes, multiple six figures, but they are just as stressed, if not more stressed, than when they were broke college students.
Because the fear of losing their status is terrifying.
Yeah.
They cannot step off the treadmill.
So Rich Dad has explained this to Robert. And now he decides to test the boys to see if they actually get it.
He wants to see if they can be bought.
Right.
So he starts negotiating with them right there in the office.
What does he offer?
He offers them 25 cents an hour.
Which is a raise.
A good raise.
Yeah.
Robert wants to say yes, but he stays quiet.
Okay.
So Rich Dad offers $1 an hour.
Now we are talking real money for a kid in the 50s.
Robert's heart starts pounding. He is imagining all the candy, all the toys, the comic books he could buy.
But he holds out.
He holds out. Then Rich Dad offers $2 an hour.
Wow.
And then finally he looks them dead in the eye and offers $5 an hour.
$5 an hour.
In 1956. I do not even know the exact inflation calculation.
Yeah.
But for a kid, that is like offering them $500 an hour today.
It is change your life money.
It really is.
And Robert describes this intense physical reaction he has in the book. He says his weak and needy soul wanted to scream, yes.
He could practically taste the freedom.
But then silence.
A calm came over him. His resilient soul, as he calls it, stepped in.
He realized what was happening.
He realized that taking the money was just accepting the trap. It was just a much bigger carrot on the stick.
But it was still a stick.
Exactly. So the boys looked at each other and they both said no.
They turned down the $5 an hour. They passed the test.
And they did. Rich Dad said, good. Most people have a price. And because they have a price, they can be controlled by fear and greed.
But by refusing the money, the boys showed they were finally ready to learn how to make money work for them. So what is the reward for passing this ultimate test?
Working for free.
Talk about a bait and switch.
I know. Rich Dad says, okay, go back to the store, work the exact same 3 hours every Saturday, but now I'm paying you zero.
Nothing.
Not even the 10 cents.
But there was a method to the madness, right?
Yeah, there was. The goal was to break what he called paycheck blindness.
Paycheck blindness.
Rich Dad told them, if I pay you, your brain goes to sleep. You just sit there waiting for the cash at the end of the day.
You just clock in and clock out.
Exactly. But if you work for free and you get hungry enough, your brain will be forced to look around for actual opportunities.
And it worked.
It did.
Robert is back in the convenience store dusting the exact same cans, miserable, totally unpaid.
But because his brain is not focused on a wage anymore, he starts really observing his environment.
And he notices something very specific about the comic books in the store.
Right. He notices the distributor coming in to replace the comic books on the rack.
Okay.
Now, back then, retailers could return unsold comics for credit.
Like a buyback program.
Kind of. But to save on shipping, the distributor would come in, cut the top half of the cover off the unsold books to prove they were not sold, and give the store credit.
Oh, I see.
But the actual books, the bottom half with the actual story inside, were just thrown into a cardboard box to be trashed.
To a 9-year-old boy, throwing away a perfectly readable comic book is an absolute sacrilege.
It is a crime against humanity. So Robert approaches the distributor and asks, hey, can we have those?
And what does the guy say?
The distributor shrugs and says, sure, you can have them as long as you promise not to resell them.
And there is the spark.
Right there.
Because he said, do not resell them.
No.
Most people with an employee mindset would hear that and think, well, I can't make money off this. It is a dead end.
Exactly. But Robert, because his brain is actively looking for an opportunity, heard something else. He heard, I have a massive supply of entertainment product for zero cost.
So what do?
They open a library.
This is brilliant.
They take a spare room in Mike's basement. They stack hundreds of these coverless comic books around the room.
And they need a manager.
Right. So they hire Mike's little sister to be the librarian.
Keeping it in the family.
And they charge the neighborhood kids 10 cents for admission.
Now, let's look at the business model here, because this is where the genius really shines. Why charge 10 cents admission instead of just renting them out?
Well, think about the value. A brand new comic book costs 10 cents to buy at the store.
Okay.
So for the exact price of one single comic, a kid could come to the basement library and read 5, 6, maybe 10 comics in 2 hours.
It was an incredible value proposition for the customer.
They were lined up around the block.
And for Robert and Mike, what was their take?
They averaged $9.50 a week in pure profit.
Wow.
Remember, their wage was 10 cents an hour before. They were making 30 cents a week.
Now they are making nearly $10 a week.
But here is the critical part. The absolute most important lesson of the story.
They did not have to be there.
Exactly. Mike's sister was running the day-to-day operation.
She was the employee.
She handled the door, she kept order, she managed the inventory.
And Robert and Mike.
They were at school, or they were playing baseball.
Oh.
And the business was generating money while they did other things.
This is the aha moment of the book.
It is the moment the light bulb turns on. They did not work for money anymore. They built an asset, the library, that worked for them.
It is basically the 1950s version of a sauce company or Netflix.
It really is. It is recurring revenue. It has zero marginal cost for the next customer since the comics are already sitting there.
And it is detached labor.
They had successfully escaped the direct link between hours worked and dollars earned.
That is the holy grail, breaking that link.
But to get there, to be able to see those opportunities, you need a foundation.
Right.
And this brings us to the more educational, maybe slightly controversial part of the deep dive.
Segment 5. Why teach financial literacy?
Right. The question the author asks is, why do we not learn this in school? Why is money this taboo subject in the classroom?
The book argues pretty strongly that the school system is designed to produce employees, not employers.
Yes. It teaches you skills to work for money. How to read, how to write, how to compute, how to follow instructions and sit still.
Which are important skills.
Very important. But it does not teach you the language of money itself.
And without that language, you are vulnerable.
Incredibly vulnerable.
Right.
There's a haunting story Rich Dad tells the boys about a meeting in 1923.
At the Edgewater Beach Hotel in Chicago.
Yes. This is a very famous story in financial circles.
That's the scene for us.
It was a gathering of the absolute titans of that era, the wealthiest, most powerful men in the world.
Who was there?
You had Charles Schwab, who was the head of the largest independent steel company.
Okay.
Samuel Insull, the president of the world's largest utility company.
Huge.
Ivar Kruger, who was known as the Match King, the head of the New York Stock Exchange, was there, a member of the president's cabinet.
These men basically controlled more wealth than the U.S. Treasury.
They were the billionaires of their day, the masters of the universe.
But the story flashes forward 25 years later.
And the outcome is horrific.
What happened?
Charles Schwab died penniless after living on borrowed money for 5 years. Samuel Insull died, broke into foreign land. Kruger committed suicide. The others went insane or ended up in prison.
That is a grim roll call. What happened to them? I mean, they obviously knew how to make money.
They were geniuses at generating cash, but they did not know how to keep it. They lacked fundamental financial literacy. When the Great Depression hit, or when the market shifted drastically, they crumbled.
Because they were over-leveraged.
They were leveraged to the hilt and did not understand true risk management. They built massive empires on fragile foundations.
It reminds me of lottery winners today. You see the headlines all the time. Man wins $100 million.
And then 5 years later, you see the follow-up. Man files for bankruptcy.
It happens so often.
It happens something like 70% of the time. Because if you give a person with a poor mindset millions of dollars, they do not magically become a rich person.
They just become a poor person with a lot of
In a
money.
very short time. Exactly.
Rich Dad uses a construction analogy for this, right?
Yeah. Yes, the foundation analogy. If you want to build a nice single-story suburban home, you pour a 6-inch slab of concrete.
Simple, quick, gets the job done.
That is your foundation.
Yeah.
But if you want to build the Empire State Building, you cannot use a 6-inch slab.
Right, it would tip over.
You have to dig a massive hole. You have to pour a foundation deep, deep into the bedrock.
So how does that relate to personal finance?
The problem is, most people are trying to build the Empire State Building of wealth on a 6-inch concrete slab.
They do not have the bedrock.
They get a high-paying job, they pile on debt, they buy all these luxury items, but they have absolutely no financial education.
So when the economic earthquake hits a recession, a layoff, a medical emergency,
A whole structure collapses.
so let's pour that deep foundation right now for everyone listening. We need to define the terms.
And this is where the book gets really practical.
Segment 6, assets versus liabilities, the golden rule.
Now, Rich Dad warned the boys before he taught them this. He said, this is going to sound absurdly simple. You might actually feel insulted by how simple it is.
Because we are used to accountants using massive spreadsheets and complex jargon.
Right. Rich Dad said that bankers and accountants make these definitions complex to justify their high fees.
Okay, so give us the KISS principle definition. Keep it super simple.
Here is the Rich Dad definition. An asset is something that puts money in my pocket.
Okay. And a liability.
A liability is something that takes money out of my pocket.
That is it.
That is literally it. Forget appreciation for a second. Forget appraised value or estimates. Just look at the cash flow. Is money flowing in or is it flowing out?
Okay, let's visualize this. The book uses diagrams, which are obviously hard to do on an audio deep dive, but let's use a plumbing analogy.
I like that. Let's do it.
Imagine your bank account is a bathtub.
Okay, we have a bathtub.
Walk us through the plumbing for the 3 different mindsets. Let's start with the poor person.
For a poor person, the drain of the bathtub is wide open. The faucet turns is the job, the income.
Right.
But the water goes straight down the drain to expenses.
Yeah.
Rent, food, clothes, taxes.
Money in, money immediately out.
There's no accumulation. The tub never fills up.
Okay. Now the middle class, this is the trap most people fall into.
The middle class plugs the drain, sort of.
Yeah.
But they install a pump that actively sucks water out of the tub.
Okay, how does that work?
Money comes in from the job. The faucet is running. Then they buy liabilities that they mistakenly think are assets.
Give me an example.
They buy a nice car on finance. They buy a boat. They buy a massive house.
And these things look like assets. They show up on a balance sheet.
But under Rich Dad's definition, they create a brand new stream of expenses. Car payments, insurance, mortgage interest, maintenance, credit card debt. So the water comes in from the faucet, goes straight to the liability column, and then is pumped out through the expense column.
They have high income, but they have massive outflow.
They're running on a treadmill. The tub never really fills.
And finally, the rich. How is their plumbing different?
The rich focus entirely on the asset column. Before they buy the luxury car, before they buy the boat, they buy the asset.
What kind of assets?
Stocks, bonds, income-generating real estate, royalties, intellectual property.
Things that produce cash.
Exactly. These assets are like little independent faucets. They generate their own water. They generate income dividends, rent, royalties.
So the arrow goes from assets straight to income.
And then that passive income pays for their expenses.
They do not work for money.
Their assets work for them.
It is a self-reinforcing loop. The assets make money, which buys more assets, which makes more money.
And this is why the rich get richer. It is not necessarily because they are lucky. It is because their bathtub creates its own water.
Okay, I am bracing myself for this next part. We have to go there.
Segment 7.
This is the part of the book that makes people want to throw it across the room.
Your house is not an asset.
Take a deep breath, listeners.
It is the most debated sentence in personal finance history.
I have to push back here. I am going to play the role of the angry homeowner.
Bring it on.
Look, I bought a house. It is worth $500,000. It is the biggest, most expensive thing I own. Everyone, my parents, my banker, my financial advisor, the government tells me this is my biggest asset.
Right.
How can you sit there and say it is a liability? That makes no sense.
It feels wrong, doesn't it? It goes against everything we are taught.
Yeah.
But let's go back to Rich Dad's strict definition.
Does it put money in your pocket or take it out?
Exactly. When you live in your house, what happens every single month?
Well, I pay the mortgage.
Which, for the first 10 to 15 years of a standard loan, is mostly interest going straight to the bank. It is not building equity. What else?
Property taxes, insurance.
Money out. Money out. What happens when the water heater breaks?
I pay a plumber to fix it. Money out.
What about when the roof leaks? Or you need to repaint the exterior?
Yeah.
Or pay for landscaping? Or utilities?
It is a never-ending list.
Every single month, the house is eating cash. It is a massive cash drain. Therefore, strictly by the account flow definition, it is a liability. It is actively taking money out of your pocket.
But wait, what about appreciation? If I buy it for $200,000 and sell it for $400,000 in 10 years, I made money. It was an asset.
Rich Dad would argue two things here.
Okay.
One, that is speculation, not investing.
Yeah.
You are betting that the market will go up. What if it doesn't? What if the neighborhood declines or the market crashes like in 2008?
That is a fair point. It is not guaranteed.
And two, even if it does go up in value, that money is trapped.
Trapped equity.
You cannot spend your home equity at the grocery store. It is dead capital until you either sell the house or take on more debt against it.
And while you are waiting those 10 years for it to go up, it is costing you thousands of dollars a year to maintain.
Exactly.
So the opportunity cost is the real killer here.
That is the core argument. If you take a $50,000 down payment and put it into a primary residence, it is sitting there eating cash every month.
But if you put that same $50,000 on into a rental property or a business.
It could be generating positive cash flow today.
So let me clarify something, because I think people get this wrong. Was Rich Dad saying be homeless? Was he saying never own a home?
No, and this is the most common misunderstanding of the book. He loved real estate. He owned tons of it. He lived in beautiful homes.
No, what was his rule?
His rule was about sequencing. Buy assets first. Let the cash flow from the assets buy the luxuries.
Okay, explain that difference.
The poor or middle class approach is work hard, buy a big house, struggle to pay the mortgage and taxes for 30 years.
And the rich approach.
Work hard, buy an income-generating asset, like a rental property.
Yeah.
Use the rent from that property to pay the mortgage on the big house you live in.
Oh.
He was not against owning a beautiful home. He was against working a job you hate just to pay for a home that eats your entire paycheck.
That is a crucial distinction. It is completely about the order of operations.
Yes, do not let the liability do the very first thing you buy. Build the asset column first.
Because if you do not, this leads straight into the doom loop of the middle class.
The rat race, visualize.
Right. You get a promotion at work, so you feel rich, and you buy a bigger house.
But now your property taxes go up. Your heating bill goes up. Your insurance goes up.
So now you need that high-paying job even more than before. You cannot quit. You cannot start your own business. You cannot take a risk.
The house literally owns you.
You are running faster and faster just to stay in the exact same place.
That is the tragedy of it.
Which brings us to a new metric for success. Segment 8. Wealth versus net worth.
This is a paradigm shift. We usually talk about net worth.
Right. I am worth $1 million.
But net worth is a static number, and it is often misleading. If your $1 million is tied up in your primary residence and your cars, You cannot eat that net worth.
It does not pay for groceries.
No. So the book introduces the concept of wealth, borrowed from the genius Buckminster Fuller.
And how does he define wealth?
Wealth is measured in time.
Time. Unpack that for me.
The question is, if I stopped working today, completely stopped going to my job, how long could I survive?
Let's do the math on that. Give me an example.
Okay, say your monthly expenses are $5,000.
Right.
Rent, food, insurance, everything.
$5,000 a month.
And let's say you have $20,000 in savings. How wealthy are you?
20,000 divided by 5,000, I am exactly 4 months wealthy.
Exactly. You have 4 months of life before you go broke.
That is terrifying.
It is the reality for most people. Now, let's flip it. Let's look at the wealthy side.
Okay.
Say your monthly expenses are still $5,000, but you have assets, rental properties, dividends, side businesses that pay you $5,100 a month in passive income
Without me working.
without you lifting a finger. How wealthy are you now?
Well, the income covers the expenses with $100 left over. So infinitely.
Infinitely wealthy. You never have to work another day in your life. As long as those assets perform, you can survive forever.
That shifts the goalposts completely.
It changes everything.
Most of us are chasing a big arbitrary number. I want to be a billionaire. I want 10 million in the bank.
Right.
But what we should actually be chasing is a simple equation. Cash flow is greater than burn rate.
Yes. Financial independence is not necessarily about having a yacht or a private jet. It is just the day your passive income exceeds your monthly expenses.
That is the day you exit the rat race.
And the beauty of it is, for some people, that number might be $3,000 a month. If you live simply, you do not need to be Elon Musk to be financially free.
You just need to lower your expenses or increase your asset column until those two lines cross on the graph.
Bingo.
Before we wrap up, I want to touch on the philosophical side of this one more time. The book mentions a really fascinating Japanese concept.
The three powers.
Yes, the sword, the jewel, and the mirror. Walk us through this.
This is a beautiful way to understand human motivation. The sword represents the power of weapons.
In modern terms, military might.
Or political force, the power to force people to do what you want.
And the jewel.
The jewel represents the power of money. The golden rule: he who has the gold makes the rules.
Obviously very powerful, but the third one is the most important, right?
Yes. The mirror. The mirror represents the power of self-knowledge. And according to Japanese legend, the mirror is actually the most treasured of all three powers.
Why is the mirror the most powerful? Why is self-knowledge better than money or weapons?
Because the mirror reveals the absolute truth. And the truth is often very painful to look at.
How does this tie back to the rat race?
The reason people stay trapped in the rat race is usually not because they are stupid. It is because they are afraid to look in the mirror.
They are lying to themselves.
Constantly. Fear causes people to look in the mirror and say, play it safe.
Right?
Fear causes people to say, I need to buy a new luxury SUV because my neighbor just got one and I want to look successful.
Keeping up with the Joneses.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Fear causes people to conform. Looking in the mirror requires radical honesty. It means asking yourself, wait, am I buying this massive house because it actually makes financial sense? Or am I buying it because I want to impress my mother-in-law?
Ouch.
It is about confronting your own emotional drivers.
So Rich Dad's greatest lesson was not really about real estate at all.
No, it was about emotional control. If you cannot control your emotions, your fear of being poor, your greed for status, you cannot control your money. The market will just eat you alive.
So we have gone from melting lead toothpaste tubes in a driveway to minting counterfeit nickels to understanding that true wealth is really just buying back your own time.
It has been quite a journey today.
Let's summarize the actionable shift here. If our listener is sitting in traffic right now,
Okay.
they are driving to a job they only tolerate, to pay for a car they're driving in, to get back to a house they never get to enjoy.
The classic trap.
What is the core shift they need to make today?
The shift is moving your focus from how do I work harder for money to how do I build a system.
Like the comic book library.
The comic book library is the perfect mascot for this entire philosophy.
Yeah.
Robert and Mike did not work harder dusting cans. They built a system, a library that worked while they played baseball.
Right.
You need to start looking at your own life and asking, where is my comic book library? What can I build or buy or create that will pay me when I am sleeping?
And what about the person who just feels totally overwhelmed, who feels like they are already too deep in the hole with a mortgage and car
I
payments.
will quote a friend of the author on this one. It is great advice. If you find you have dug yourself into a hole,
Yeah.
stop digging.
Stop digging. I love that.
You cannot change the past. You cannot unbuy the expensive car you bought 5 years ago.
But you can control today.
Yes. Look at your expense column today. Look at every single line item. Ask yourself, is this an asset? Or is it a liability taking money out of my pocket?
Can you stop the bleeding?
Can you take just $100 a month
Yeah.
and start buying an asset instead of a liability? Because it's not about how much you make.
It's about how much you keep.
Start pouring that deep foundation today.
That is incredibly powerful. And it brings up one final thought that I want to leave everyone with. Something to mull over as we close out this deep dive.
Let's hear it.
We have talked all about building the asset column, getting out of the rat race, and achieving financial independence for yourself.
Right.
But what happens when you succeed? Think about Poor Dad and Rich Dad.
Okay.
Poor Dad passed on his mindset to his kids go to school, get a safe job. Rich Dad passed on his mindset.
Which created generational wealth.
Exactly. So the provocative question is this. If you do manage to build the empire state building of wealth, how do you ensure the next generation does not just inherit the money, but inherits the financial literacy to keep it?
Because if you just give them the money without the mirror.
They become the 1923 Titans at the Edgewater Hotel. They lose it all.
Wow. That is a heavy thought.
Yeah,
It is not just about saving yourself. It is about rewriting the family code.
exactly. And on that note, we're going to close the file on Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
It has been fantastic.
I have a feeling this conversation is going to stick with people. I know I am going to look at my house a little differently tonight.
Just do not put a for sale sign in the yard immediately. Do the math first.
I will definitely check the mirror first. Thanks for listening to the deep dive, everyone. Go find your comic book library. We will see you next time.